Okay, so I'm Sal. I'm one of the occupational therapists that work at the Rehab unit in Barnsley. It's an inpatient unit, and not only are there OTs, but there's lots of different therapists there as well, and it follows the patients out into the community as well. So it's kind of inpatient, subacute. So after neurosurgery, or it's okay, come on in. And then there's also an outreach team that can follow patients through after discharge and kind of continue the kind of treatment plan. So first is kind of just a basic definition of what a goal is. Give you time to just have a read through that. And all of us have goal-directed behaviour. So we all use goals on a daily basis. The goal was kind of this morning to get up in time to kind of get your breakfast at the buffet. The goal was to kind of finish the workshop first thing this morning, to kind of get downstairs to get a refreshment. Whatever, anything that you do during the day, that's kind of considered to be a goal. You can plan them for future, you can plan them for long term, you can plan them for short term. So all of us are driven by the motivation to actually achieve something. So what I'm going to do is just have a bit of an exercise. Has anybody got anything that they want to share with the group that they've done over the last couple of weeks or that they're planning to do in the next week? It doesn't have to be anything amazing. It can just be changing your car insurance, searching the internet for whatever. Whoever's, give us something. Moving house, right, okay. Is that something that you've got to do?
Yeah.
Okay, and how far into that are you? Is it imminent?
As far as I'd like to be.
Right, okay. So what, you found a house to buy?
Yeah, just to rent.
Okay, found a house to rent, okay. And what kind of things will you have to put in place in order to sort that out?
We're just waiting for the references to go through at the moment.
Okay.
And my partner's waiting to sell, he's waiting for the finalisation of his house being sold.
Okay.
Lots
Okay.
of things.
Right, okay, so moving, packing, dates,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff, right. What's your name, sorry?
Fleur.
Fleur. Okay, so who's got advice for Fleur as to how she can achieve those kind of objectives? Sorting out references. What would you do?
Write a list.
Write a list, yeah, absolutely.
Smaller goals, success.
Yeah, so you've got smaller things to kind of check off first so you know where you are. About kind of chasing up the referees and kind of saying, you know, get a move on. I want to move. Anything else? What advice would you give her? Has anyone been through that before? Or moving house, not necessarily to rent, but just kind of moving house.
Write everything down, prioritising.
Prioritising, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So I'm hoping you've done all that, right? Okay, so it's all about kind of generating ideas that can be used purposefully in order to tick off those things on your checklist to make it sure that you've done them, not necessarily in the right order, but you've completed them and it's allowed you to reach your long-term goal. Now that was Fleur's goal, and you all kind of inputted to that, or kind of at least thought about it. But the main thing that you need to think about is that goals are individual. They don't work if other people set them for you. They are completely individual to you. And when I'm working at the unit and I'm working with patients who are wanting to get back to normal, wanting to get home, the only people that can have an influence on what goals they do are the individuals themselves. The rest of the people are there just purely to facilitate that process. In order to set a goal, you need to have the skills in order to do that. You need to kind of be able to think about what it is that you want to achieve. You need to be able to plan it, organise it, regulate yourself as to whether you think you're actually going to achieve it, and if you're not, do you need to step backwards and reset that goal? So it's a constant kind of process. It's a really changeable process. You need an awareness of your own strengths and weaknesses so that you don't overpitch, so that you don't decide to kind of do a goal of kind of flying an aeroplane when you've got no way of actually achieving that, or also you don't kind of want to pitch it too low so that actually you're not continuing that motivation. And as all of us know, when you've had an acquired brain injury, all these processes aren't always kind of finely tuned. So there might be some part of it where there's no initiation. So you know what you want to do. If someone set it out for you, you'd be able to do it, but actually getting out of bed and doing it yourself just doesn't come. It just doesn't, you don't want to do it. So it's kind of how to facilitate that individual goal. So goal planning is important for absolutely everybody. Again, it's kind of working from my own point of view from a rehab unit. So it's important for the patients. They've come from a hospital setting into a rehab unit, and their main goal is either to walk or to go home. They're the kind of two ones that you normally get. So it's important for them to be able to say at a really, really early stage what it is exactly that they want to do. For OTs and for the MDT, which is multidisciplinary team, it's important to get all that information, to kind of gather who that person was before, and that's kind of liaising with them and also with the family, what was important to them, what their likes, dislikes are. We use kind of a biographical questionnaire. So one of us will go through that with the patient when they first come in. Things that they like doing. If they don't like getting up till 10 o'clock in the morning, then there's no point doing a session at 8 o'clock in the morning for them, because they're just going to not be used to it. They're going to be grumpy. They might not be motivated to actually engage in it. So it's important that we have as much information as possible. And that helps the progress of that kind of goal continuum. So you're starting from the short-term goals to the long-term goals, and actually working through them and ticking them off and kind of writing checklists. It's also important for motivation. If you know that there's something that you want to work towards, you're more motivated to actually do it. And outcome measures just help us identify what you've achieved and whether whether the whole goal has been achieved or whether certain aspects of it have. And from a consistent point of view, that kind of relates to everyone's facilitation of that client-centred goal. So if somebody wants to interact socially in a group without getting emotional, there might be a behavioural aspect to that. So it's important that the client, patient, service user knows exactly what it is that triggers that emotional response, but also for everybody else involved in that group, from a carer, from a therapist, from the group member, so that they can give a consistent feedback to that individual, so that they learn through experience consistently that they have reached that goal. They have only had 2 emotional outbursts, that might be the goal. Throughout a breakfast group in the morning, there's only been 2 emotional outbursts and they've been triggered, they're not spontaneous. So that might be the goal, and if everybody knows that, then they can support that person through it. So one of the things we really work hard with first is actually establishing a relationship with that person when they first come in. So the first week, 2 weeks, however long it takes for that person to settle, is the most important time. They need to get used to the environment, they need to just kind of react to coming out of a hospital setting and making that next step towards going home. During that time, as some of you may know, sure?
You started by saying that goals are individual,
yeah.
But now we're talking about discussing what goals might be and the sub-goals with the individual who's trying to set them, who might be finding it quite difficult to set goals?
Yeah, yes. So this is kind of all about, just kind of jumping on that point, this is all about kind of who's in charge. And the answer is absolutely everybody. Everybody has a contribution to make to a client-centred goal, but the focus still needs to be client-centred. Everyone can input to that, but you can't ever make a goal that's your goal and impose it on somebody else. But what we're identifying is that people with acquired brain injury sometimes have difficulty pinpointing specifically what they actually want to achieve. And that's kind of where the facilitation comes in, by people who have had experience in that and can therefore kind of help gauge and make sure that that goal is at the right level so it can be achieved.